Hello, 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 everyone. Today I'm in conversation with Juliana Sauber. She hosts a podcast called Defy Gravity and have been a guest on her program before. Today we're talking on the topic of alignment, and it's been about 2 years since we've had any discussion, and I'm excited to share this particular topic with you all. So sit back, enjoy, take your notebooks. There may be some things you want to write down.
Well, it's so good. I mean, we always have these great conversations, um, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting how we've connected with each other so long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have these gaps of time where it's as if we sort of go into our cocoons and do the work and and watch the flow of life, and then we come back together.
Yeah.
So and I do love your name, Constant Flow, especially that add-on is incredible.
Thank you.
So yeah, so we wanted to, I mean, we hadn't chatted in a while, so I really was
Right.
excited to bring this back in and eager to see what comes out of the conversation because it just always seems to flow really nicely.
Yeah.
So I think what we decided we want to talk about today is alignment with self. That
Right.
it feels so important now. I mean, it's always been important, but why does it feel more important now than it has in a while? I
It,
mean, is it because the world's a little more chaotic? Is it?
you know what? And this is a conversation I've been having. In my mind, it seems I was speaking with someone this morning and I said, man, I'm trying to find another word apart from alignment because it seems to be a word that's being dropped all over the place recently.
Sure.
But this is a conversation that I've been having quite often in recent times. And I believe it is the case. You and I and other individuals in this field, we've been talking about alignment quite often, but now it's a topic that's become more prevalent. And I believe it is the case because we're going through a season when many people are being triggered and awakened to go
Yeah.
deeper within themselves, right? Anytime there's
Hmm.
chaos, I remember one of our last recordings we had, I was saying I actually see this season as a good season because whenever there is major contrast and whenever there is chaos happening or perceived chaos, I would say, because
Hmm.
it's all about how you look at things.
Right.
It is also a time when individuals are being awakened to a deeper understanding and connection to themselves, which is
Yeah.
essentially what alignment is, right?
Right.
Being in tuned and being in sync with the energy source, the power, the God power within you, so that
Yeah.
there is less resistance and push against the flow of life.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
true. I've never seen the tug of war. And we want to talk about tug of war between, different groups, cultures, political
Mhm.
parties, homeschooling versus public school, like all of these tug of wars. And it's like, well, wait a second. If you're aligned with yourself, you're aligned with the truth of yourself, you're connected with source, however you define that. And it's not
Mhm.
for anybody else to define it for you or how you practice it or how you connect with it.
Right.
If you're there, then you're not in the tug of war anymore.
Right. Right.
And then there is all that tug of war loses power, it loses steam and momentum. And it feels like, as I see
Mhm.
certain movements appear to me between a tug of war between I want to be who I want to be, and you want
Mhm.
to tell me how I need to be.
Right. And so where that is concerned, the fight only happens when we choose to engage it. That's my perception, right?
Yes,
The fight
yes.
only happens when you choose to engage it. And it goes almost contrary, it goes against the norm to step away from all of the bickering and all of the tug of war that is occurring on various topics, right?
Yeah.
And wherever somebody's passionate, you hear the loudest voices, right?
Yeah.
And what has helped me is to resolve within myself, okay, what is your view on this personally? I always have a view. I don't care to discuss them, right?
Right. Right.
There's some things I really don't. There's actually some topics I'm like, people actually talking about this. You saw my post recently. I did it for fun because literally that's how I see many of the arguments that are floating around.
Mhm.
I posted a picture saying this is how this is a perfect representation of how people go around arguing about stuff. This is a rock or this is a stone, and I said clearly no. The caption said this is a rock, and I said clearly this is a stone. And then all the posts after that, people are like, it's a pebble, it's a crystal,
Right.
right? But
Yeah.
that's how I see many of the arguments, and I get that we have individuals who are forerunners and need to speak up because it does help to shift the trajectory. And I also believe within my heart, there's a statement by Abraham Hicks that I hold to be true. One who's connected to source is more powerful than millions who are not.
Absolutely.
A new statement that I have been saying, it's a personal statement. Light does not need words. Light does not need words. And so the more connected, my goal, my intention, and what I seek to help individuals to do is to connect with your light, right?
Yes.
And shine
Yes.
it so bright that you don't need to sound a trumpet. You don't need to argue a point. You know what is right, at least based on your awareness and understanding for this moment. That's something that individuals do not understand. Many individuals do not understand as well. When you start seeing things as ultimate and absolute, then you remove all possibilities and opportunities for growth and expansion. Because something can be very true and resonate for you in this moment, but when you allow for the flow of source to take its place, as you expand, those views may change, and you have to be okay with relinquishing them. The important thing, as I see it, is to choose to remain in alignment without needing an entourage, without needing a support of other loud voices, and resolving to do whatever it takes to stay in alignment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, that has been not necessarily. There have been things that people are arguing about in 2020, and I just smiled and said, "This is going to change. Like, I'm not even bothered."
Yeah.
And they did. It took time, but they did.
They did. They did.
And so that's how I see life. And I believe that one of the reasons this is happening is because there are people who are understanding this. There are people who are getting that, you know what? When I fight and argue about this, it raises my anxiety. This must not be the way.
Yeah.
It keeps me up at night. This must not be Source's way of dealing with it, right?
Right.
So what am I resolving to do within myself to maintain my alignment and ensure for me, my freedom and my power of choice is important to me. To maintain that in every moment, I know that I get to choose and move with the knowing that Source is always with me and protecting me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like the loudest voices in so many of these discussions are the ones who are most out of alignment with themselves and source. And this isn't meant to be a judgment by any means. But I do recall a time period, a chunk of my life, like 40 years, where I was out of alignment with myself. Lots of analogies, right? I wore a costume that said I am a corporate something. I wore a costume that said I have to be perfect. I wore a costume that said I have to work myself to the bone because that's the only way I'm going to get ahead and succeed. All these, all these costumes because somebody else said this, and I said, okay, because there was no inner alignment at that point in time, or very little, until it got more and more uncomfortable for me. Being out of alignment with myself got more and more uncomfortable with me, and I liked myself less and less. I liked the situations I was in. I disliked the people I was around and who I was when I was with them. It got far more, it was a friend of mine uses the analogy of the eagle's nest. So when the eagle mother wants their chicks to fly, it'll pull the soft feathers out and what's left are the sticks. So the more you're getting poked, the more you feel uncomfortable in the situations you're in, the more you could say, well, I'm out of alignment with who I am. And I don't have to force anybody else to be in alignment with me, because that's the other piece of it, is that to make myself feel more comfortable, I'm going to force you to be in alignment with me. I'm going to force you to look like me.
Which is actually leading you out of your own alignment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because maybe that's the right choice for them.
Exactly.
Maybe it's not. Maybe they've never explored it. But that exploration of who am I in relationship to where I live? I mean, it can start with really simple things like, do I live where I want to live? Do I live in the type of house I want to live in? Do I drive the kind of car I want to drive? I always said I'm not going to be a minivan mom, and I never have driven a minivan. I'm more of a sports car person. Like I had a Mustang until my son was. Did you really?
Yeah, I did. I had it on the Odyssey some years ago.
Oh, wow. And they're super functional, but for me, I was like, I'm more of a sports car, zippy, like I want off-road kind of thing. So even those explorations are alignments, right? So we talk about alignment as this big nebulous concept, but it can really start with basics. Does the work that I do align with who I am, or do I do it because my parents said that was supposed to what I should do, and I want their approval? But am I disappointed in myself that I continue to do that? And how do I realign with that? Which might mean some education, it might be changing, it might mean making some people disappointed and unhappy. But in the end, it's the way to go. Yeah, I was going to say in the end, it's the way to go. Is to explore all that and realign.
And I like that we smoothly segued into this, because a question or a comment that I've gotten from individuals who speak this lingo is, Geraldine, you take it for granted that people actually know what it means to be in alignment, and you just explained that. A basic question, the way you live your life, is it in sync with your ultimate desires? Is it in sync with who Source sees you to be? Or is it a reflection of you seeking to fit in, of you seeking to be a clone, of you seeking to exist, right? As opposed to living and thriving and being in flow, right?
Yeah.
Those questions would help someone seeking to understand what it even means to gain some clarity on whether they're in alignment. Because the easiest thing I think about when I started getting into this type of work, I remember before using the word alignment, I would be driving around, and that's one of the ways that the universe starts to get your attention, right? You start seeing numbers, you start seeing, it could be a sign over and over again, a billboard sign, and you're like, wait a minute, I've been seeing this often, right?
Yeah.
So I remember every time I would be driving around the city, I would randomly put up my head just when I was passing an auto mechanic shop, and I would see the word alignment. I kid you not, I missed none of them. I would be driving down the street, put up my head, alignment shop, alignment, come get your vehicles. And I'm like, okay, why am I seeing this word? And I started looking more into it, right? And then I saw the spiritual connection with that word. Well, I know what it means to get your car in alignment, right? Your tires in alignment. So it helped me to understand, right? Everything is moving in sync with each other, it's balanced, right? And so what causes you to be in that state of balance? And we're not just talking about, body, mind, spirit. Yes, as a matter of fact, body, mind, spirit is all one, as far as I'm concerned, right? But what causes you to be in that state where you're not feeling that tug, that constant tug, whether it's on your heart, whether it's that nagging in your soul that there's more? I remember years ago saying, there has to be more to life than this. There has to be. And during that
Yes.
time, I was not in alignment. That was my sign. I just knew there had to be more to life than how I was living. And I was
Yeah.
quite damn tired of how that part of life felt. I wanted
Yeah.
more. I started asking God for more, right? And I believe when you start to ask those hard questions, because some people are too scared to ask those questions. I have gotten from people, well, what if you get to the point where you realize that everything that you believe to be true is no longer true? I said, well, that's when the journey begins.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
that's when the journey begins. And if you're too fearful to figure that part out, then you're going to be comfortable in a state of resistance, which is the opposite of alignment. So yeah, I think that's those are some questions that individuals will need to ask themselves. What am I living
Hmm.
for? What am I
Right.
living for? Who am I living for?
Hmm.
The years that I've lived, who benefited from those years? Can you say that you were satisfied making the decisions that you made, even the ones that you perceive? I don't believe in mistakes, but the ones that you perceive to be not the best decisions, are you
Right.
satisfied with those decisions? Have you learned from them? Have they made you a better individual?
Yes.
you know
Yes.
so
Right.
that those questions lead, if you're not in that state, it leads you, it points you to that place where you begin to receive the answers that when you are ready to do the work, it creates that state of alignment. It's not an
Yeah.
easy thing. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. The beautiful part though is like when you slog through it, they call it the term shadow work is gaining momentum as well. And it's not a new
Hmm.
term, it's just more knowledge
Yeah.
based. So the shadow work to me is the parts of ourselves that we've disowned,
Yes.
right? Is a piece of shadow work. So the part of myself that really wanted to not work in a corporate job. That's one.
Hmm.
So I did that because that's what I was raised to do. And, we sat around the dining room table every night at dinner. My dad told stories of work and glorified it and thought it was wonderful. And that was what I needed to do. I like work myself up to it. I was going to be CEO of the company. And I mean, all this stuff. So now as we've had discussions about things going forward and my husband getting closer to retirement, et cetera, he's like, well, you could be making six figures or more going back in the corporate world. I'm like, yeah, but you know what, that like soul sucking I just can't do that. But I had to go through this period of saying, well, okay, so how did being in the corporate world thrill me and how did it eat me alive?
Hmm.
And so can I still get the thrill and not be eaten alive?
There you go. I'm glad you said that, because for some people it might just not be their calling. But what I'm also discovering, kind of knew this, but you're realizing that sometimes you need to step away and it's not always permanent. Sometimes it's for a time so that you gain full control, is not the word, balance, um, over your mind, over you get to know yourself intimately. And
Yeah.
sometimes you might be led right back in that environment. And who you show up as is a completely different person. You're more fulfilled. But it's a matter of knowing you, right?
Yeah.
I know it's not for me. But
Yeah.
I also know that there are very aligned people in those positions who are thriving and they're very connected with source. And I think for some time, initially when I started exploring um, new ways of being in terms of spirituality, there was this notion that you can't be, and that I think that's one of the reasons why people reject the whole spiritual way of being, because in the past the people you saw were all dressing in robes and walking with a stick, or meditating all day, and they looked like they really gave up everything to just be this nomad. right?
Right.
But
Right.
but as time went on, it's a beautiful thing to discover that they're all around, like
Yeah.
all around. It's not a clique of people who speak a certain language and
Right.
nobody else gets it. You know, I have friends in the corporate field and they're very much aligned. And when we start speaking, we speak the same language, but they're
Yeah.
not separate from, you know what I'm saying? So that's something that has been a blessing to discover. And it excites me, you know why? Because you realize that your people are everywhere. And just
Yeah.
about anywhere you go, you have someone who is on your vibe. You walk into
Yes.
the bank and you meet that right person who was placed there for someone just like you,
Yes.
right? You go into some corporate office and that one person, you don't say anything and they look at you like, huh, you know. There's some
Right.
things that I like to do for the fun of it. Like, I wear my bracelets and sometimes that's
Right.
a conversation starter. But sometimes I don't have anything on and someone looks at
Yeah.
me and they say, there's something about you, your
Mhm.
vibe. Like, and I've experienced that with others as well. I went to the gym and I was sitting in the sauna and this girl was having a conversation on her headphones and I couldn't help but listen. Like she's talking my language. But it
Yeah.
wasn't just what she was saying. When she walked in, I looked at her and she had this glow. Yeah, we're in the gym and
Yeah.
we're sweating. We're all working out, but it wasn't the sweat. It was this glow. And I looked at her and I said hi. Kind of wanted to talk to her, but she was on her Bluetooth headphones speaking and I couldn't wait for her to get off. But while she was speaking,
Right.
eventually I said, I can't help but listen to your conversation. There were two other people in the sauna saying, I was thinking the same thing. And once she got off, we were having this conversation in there. Granted, after the conversation, I ended up getting a client, right, who was
Right.
seeking out the services that I offer. But it happened because of this one girl who came in there and she was just being. And
Yeah.
that's life every day when you're just in this connection. That's what it is.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
place of connection and just knowing that everywhere you're at, that source has your people. And sometimes it's
Mhm.
not about making friends or connections. It's just about allowing somebody to experience a different way of being for a moment, you know, just to realize, hey, I'm not that
Yeah.
alone. There are other people who
Right.
think like me. Oh, I'm not crazy. That's a big deal. For someone to just be in your presence for a little bit and come to the conclusion, I'm not going crazy. If this person looks okay,
Right.
you know.